All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. Welcome to the Hudson Library and Historical Society. How many of you are from Hudson? If you raise your hand. Okay. All right, enthusiastic Hudsonite here too. How many of you, this is your first time attending a library program here? Oh, okay, well, welcome. We're always welcoming of new library patrons, so welcome. We put out a full list of, a full calendar of library programs, and we'll have a calendar in the back that you can grab on your way out so you can see all the different programs that we do. If you can think about donating, we would appreciate just a few dollars. It helps continue our programs like this one. The donation box is in the back. And I also want to let you know that afterwards there will be a reception in the rotunda with some refreshments and a book signing, and Jane and Ann Esselstyn will sign their cookbooks. And you can purchase one from the Learned Owl in the back. I'm pleased to introduce my former neighbors, actually, strangely enough. And actually, they're still my mom's neighbors. So I used to tramp through their yard when I was little, and they were very generous in letting me do so. Anne and Jane Esselstyn have decades of experience developing delicious and healthful dishes. And I can attest to that because they had amazing gardens in the backyard, including recipes for Dr. Esselstyn's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, and my beef with meat with their son, Rip. Anne has been called the Julia Child of plant-based cooking, and Jane is a wellness instructor and a mother of 3. So please welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is this right? Thank you, Polly. You know that Polly was the babysitter, this is hard to believe, at Jane's wedding. No, was it Jane? Was it your wedding?
Yeah, it was my wedding.
Yeah, it was your Suddenly I was thinking babysitter. It was babysitter for our son's children, not hers then.
In college now.
Thank you all for being here. It is amazing. And I apologize that my husband isn't here, but you know, I think we do really well instead. Good stand-ins. And just to sort of give you a little background, my husband wrote Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease in 2007. And when he wrote this book, he wrote it with people with heart disease specifically in mind. There was no meat, no dairy, and no oil for these patients. And of course, it's good for all of us, this way of eating. But then a few years later, our son, Rip, wrote the Engine 2 Diet. And Rip's story is wonderful. But he wrote this book. Well, and he wrote this book, but he called his program Plant Strong. But in order to differentiate between the two programs, he called his Plant Strong and my husband's Plant Perfect. So this is the lead-in to what happened for Jane and me, because we decided to write the cookbook for those patients with heart disease, following the Plant Perfect ideas. And just as an aside, Rip did write another book called My Beef with Meat, and believe it or not, Jane created all the recipes in this book.
Says the mom.
And in fact, in this book, I did these recipes. So you see, we have all this wisdom of recipes behind us. And so what we wanted to do today is give you a little bit from Jane of the background, just so if any of you are in here and think you're hearing my husband, you're going to sort of hear her from Jane. And then we'd like to give you some of our guidelines for our cookbook. Because, you know, when you buy most vegan cookbooks or vegan food, you will find that the first thing in the recipes is at least 2/3 of a cup of cashews. Because you know why? It gives you that sort of oily feeling. So we've used no nuts in our book, and you don't miss them. It's wonderful. So anyway, I'm onward with Jane, and I think we may have... Oh, you've got
Rip's got avocado and nuts.
Oh, you.
Well, that,
Well, and there are no nuts in our book.
Plant Perfect.
In Plant Perfect. And in our son Rips, and I strongly recommend, eating plant-based and eating the avocados and nuts if you don't have heart disease, or you're not trying to lose weight, or you don't have diabetes. But this is the good way to go.
But can you guys hear, is my lapel working? Larry, can you hear me? I want to just emphasize again, Rip is a triathlete, Ironman triathlete. My husband does Ironman triathlons. I do yoga and run. My kids all swim for Hawken. If you've heard of it, it's the school over in Gates Mills. North of here? North? Yeah, we took SOM the whole way, 91 the whole way. And like my daughter is a freshman in high school, and she won states in the 200 IM. Little nuts and avocado help keep her, keep the weight on. Oftentimes people with heart disease, they have comorbidities or other things that are kind of not going right. So these people, we have found through research, staying off the nuts, staying off avocados is key because their body, for some reason, is really good at taking all the fat, saturated fat from those nuts. Yeah, nuts are fine if you're not sick. But if you are, your body takes the fat from that stuff and lays it down in places where it's not functionally supposed to be for ideal health. Okay, because we arrived here and we saw my dad's picture on the front door, we thought, Essie's with us tonight? We've been on, since our book came out, we've been on talk shows and blog radios and showing up here and there and everywhere, and we didn't even think to include him in our reindeer games here. So we didn't bring him, but I thought in case some people did come to hear a little bit of the research side, I have like 6 PowerPoint slides that I can talk about. Who wants to hear some research? I mean, it's a little, 4 people? All right, okay, I see about 14 now. A little bit of research, I won't make it painful. But if you did come here for some of the rationale behind why are we eating no dairy, no meat, no oil, minimal salt, minimal sweet, when everyone's like, but what about my protein, my this, my that? Well, this is a good little picture of why it's so important to follow these guidelines and why we had these guidelines when we wrote the cookbook together. So I'm going to go ahead. I can tell you. Say something.
Oh, we live next door to each other, and it has been so much fun while she's getting ready to do this cookbook because Jane would do something and come over and bring it to us, or I would, run over in the snow or whatever, and it was just great. I mean, we had.
Polly, if you were there, we would have run behind the house and given some to you too. Okay, here's my dad. No. And he, occasionally he's not been able to give talks, in Grundy, Virginia, or in Cherry Hill, wherever. People ask him all the time to speak. So what Polly didn't say is I'm a nurse, I'm an RN, and I've done research with the Cleveland Clinic, and I'm used to talking about this stuff with patients, with a group of people. So he said, Jane, you have to use this slide, and you'll see which ones are his slides. They're like the 1991 era PowerPoint, bright blue. Don't change the background, Jane. That's exactly how it should look. So you'll see his stuff. Example 1A. And the reason I include this slide, which is so basic, is because it's, yes, his blue PowerPoint. But there are 2 words up here that I love and that you all should love, and it's the reason you're going to eat this way. Woohoo! What are the 2 words? No. You guys are getting closer now in your 3rd try. What are the 2 words I love most about this PowerPoint slide? The cause. My dad is treating the cause. He's like, what's up with this pill to stop your own liver from making your own human cholesterol so you don't have a high cholesterol? You're supposed to make cholesterol. Every single cell in your body, the 2x4s are made of your own human Polly, Jane, and cholesterol that you make in your own liver. You should not be getting your cholesterol from the cells of other animals you eat. So don't take the statins, just stop the cholesterol upstream, the cause.
Can I pick it up?
Don't go and have your chest pulled open and a vein from your thigh put on your heart to be used as an artery. That's like having a mountain bike tire on your SUV. Go to the cause. Stop it upstream. You know what I'm trying to say? See why I'm a big fan of those two words? And you guys are too now, right? Okay. There's no heart disease in many cultures. And this was a lot of how my dad based the direction of his research. Epidemiology, who's heard of that? Some of you guys? It's looking at the patterns in other cultures to seeing what's going on out there. All these cultures, they don't have any heart disease. None. Zero. They reproduce. They're happy. They live in families. They're not missing anything except heart disease. So he's like, it doesn't exist in some of these places. What's the difference? The air? No. The water? No. It's the food. It's the food. It's the food. Okay. This study, if you want to look it up, write it down. I'm not going to bore you with it too much, but basically it showed that here in the United States, accidents, homicides, and suicides of people the age of 17 to 21 showed already at that age and stage of life evidence of heart disease in their carotid artery. It's by Strong. You can look it up if you want to hear more. Only 14 of you really wanted to hear this, so I'm going to rush on through that. But there you go. You graduate from high school, he says, you graduate with high school with your high school diploma and the Foundation for Heart Disease in America. Okay. This is a really exciting slide. And those of you who have his book, I see some of you guys holding the book. This he describes in the book is a chart. Strom and Jabson did a research in 1951 about what happened when the Germans took over the Netherlands. And when they did that, they took over the turkeys and the chickens and the cows and the ducks and the eggs and kind of took over all that. So what was left for them to eat? Plants. They had to eat what they could harvest, what wasn't, the ducks and the hens and the eggs and all that stuff. So what happened is in that time, during the occupation, is all sorts of diseases related to vascular issues, heart attacks and strokes, plummeted. And my dad said, who knew the Germans were such great public health ambassadors? If they could only have continued in that way. And I'm like, oh, no. Awful. So then when everything ended and the Germans left, back come in the hams, back come in the hens, back the eggs and the turkeys and the heart disease and the strokes and all the rest. So this was a really interesting study that was done on humans unintentionally, but with interesting consequences. Okay. This is cross-section of a healthy, wide-open vessel, an artery. And this is the most fascinating part of it. This is what my dad would talk to you about for about 3 hours if he could. See this little dark layer? See this dark layer? He'll talk about heart disease and sports until the cows come home. Actually, there's no cows, so the kale grows tall. So this layer right here has a special name. What's it called? Someone said it. Endothelium. Endothelium, exactly. And the endothelium is this amazing dynamic layer. You know when you wear a fancy sports coat and it has like a tough outside, but a silky smooth inside? That's what the endothelium is in your vessels, every single one of your arterial walls. Not your veins, but your arteries. And it has fascinating properties. This endothelium, what can endothelium do? Those of you who knew the endothelium, what does it do? Oh, come on. Some of you guys have read this book. You know what the endothelium does? It's this beautiful silky layer, and it's designed to be the tube through which blood flows. And this endothelium is silky, so it's like Teflon. It helps the blood stay slipping right through. It releases a gas called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide can make this round thing right here go. Have you ever gone running or been lifting weights or something or just some sort of exercise and you've seen like, oh, this artery or this part of my body is now bigger. Like, oh, I'm all pumped up. It had to dilate because of all the use. It's saying, okay, get bigger. I'm a sex ed teacher when I'm not doing the food stuff, and some other arteries also dilate when certain activity is wrong. And so that dilation has to happen. If that dilation can't happen, we've heard about that during every commercial and Monday Night Football. So if we coat and cover this thin layer, this special silky layer inside of our strong arteries, if we coat it with saturated fat from cheese and oil and eggs and butter and salad dressing and canola oil and extra virgin olive oil, yes, any oil, all oil, then it can't release that gas. It can't release nitric oxide. Big trouble. This is the space through which the blood is flowing now, that teeny space. It went from being that big artery that we had, the big round one, that's how big it is. Where's the endothelial cell layer? This person has pain walking to the mailbox, walking into the bathroom to shave. Their veins just can't move at all. It's been hardened. This is all just plaquey buildup. And you might think this person's about to have a heart attack, but they're not. This actually is so hard, it's sort of stable. 10% of heart attacks come from this sort of pathology. Look at the difference there. I feel so good. I'm full of energy. Oh my gosh, plant-based makes me feel so good. Eggs and butters and cheese and saturated fat just hardening in there. That's what plaquey buildup looks like in cross-section. Okay, here are some properties of endothelium. This is why you want to keep it clean, not covered in chapstick and wax. I'm sorry, not chapstick. Oil, just sunscreen, whatever you want to call this substance in food that we eat that just layers on top. They release this endothelial cells release nitric oxide. They help vasodilate, make things get bigger. They prevent inflammation in the arteries from occurring. I think people have heard about inflammation in arteries occurring, especially as being a marker of heart disease. And it keeps all your blood from flowing through, not getting stuck in there. Think about it, like if it's like like if someone plowing snow through a vessel. You get a little bit stuck, and then the next time it goes through, a little more build up. Before you know it, you got a snow drift or a plaque drift building up in a vessel. So you want to have this endothelial cell clean so plaquey buildup doesn't happen. So I was going to take a closer look at heart disease with you guys because I want to just show you two things about, just ignore that for a second. Here's this silky layer. It really is a silky, silky layer. Silky endothelial layer. This is what the internal inside of a vessel is like. So this is a vessel. We're going to cut it in half, open it up. This is what it looks like inside. You all with me? Okay. Blood is flowing. There's some things that affect the layer, this layer inside of your vessel. I teach middle school sex ed. I'm used to doing things hands-on like this. But you can imagine what the sex ed class is talking about. Okay. Blood's flowing. Some things in the diet can affect this layer. And we've mentioned them a couple times, but sometimes it takes just drilling it into the head what it is that affects this layer. Saturated fat, kind of the American diet affects this, and it has all these things start to build up and layer up. So I'm just going to make this be like this layer of saturated fat, just sticky. I'm not going to have this stick to this directly because it'll ruin my silky layer, but just build up in the arteries. Sticky, saturated fat. Other things that are in the blood that can affect the arterial wall, cholesterol. We make cholesterol, as I mentioned earlier. We make it in our liver. We make LDL, HDL. LDL is actually fluffy and puffy, and it flows through our vessels saying, hey, hi, I'm going to go do what I need to do. And it flows through. It's fluffy and puffy, fluffy and puffy. That's how it usually looks. But with the American diet, the sticky saturated fat, what happens is it oxidizes or it hardens the LDL into small, hard molecules. And what happens when they get small and hard and oxidized, they get in the subendothelial space. That's the biggest word I'm going to say tonight. These go into like a splinter under your fingernail. Okay? These get in the subendothelial space. So what happens when these get underneath the subendothelial space? What's happening? If you have a splinter under your fingernail, what happens? What starts to build up? And what's the abscess made of? Exactly, you guys. You got to the word so fast. You're the fastest group so far. It has sort of a white blood cell, a macrophage, a pussy buildup. It literally turns into almost like a pimple growing up in here. Remember, this is a round space. This is a round space, and we've already got a couple pimples building up there. Literally, little pimples in there building up because there was a sticky wall, and the LDL stuck underneath it. So it's building up, and it's building up. It's all this. Okay, the kids love this pimple. The middle schoolers love the pimple analogy. But here's this pimple. And remember, the blood is flowing. Blood is flowing. Blood is flowing. So what's happening to the cap right here? This cap is getting what? What's happening to it after it's flowing? Flowing. It's getting thinner and thinner and thinner until it's like a cobweb thin. And the cap ruptures. Have any of you guys ever heard of someone having a cap rupture? They died immediately. Have you ever heard that? They died immediately versus they had heart attack. They had heart pain. Heart pain is like, can't get blood someplace because of the little, because of the little space. This is someone dying immediately. Cap ruptures, this membrane breaks, all this stuff flows out into the bloodstream. You've ripped the wall of the artery, so it's bleeding inside. When you're bleeding, what does your blood want to do? It wants to C-L-O-T. Clot. So you get a clot right here. Boom. Your body clots off its own artery. That is a cap rupture. That is, oh my gosh, he was playing tennis and he died immediately. He was dead before he hit the floor. Have you ever heard of that kind of heart attack? Versus like, oh, he has chest pain. He's having a heart attack. Different. This one is way more common. You don't hear it coming. So let's reverse this, you guys. Let's reverse it. Let's make this pimple not be happening. Okay? No buildup because we don't have hard LDL. How do we make it hard? We have to make it fluffy and puffy. How do we get it fluffy and puffy? Oh, we take away the saturated fat. We take away the olive oil, the chicken, the butter, the eggs, the ice cream, all the oily stuff. And we have the fluffy, puffy stuff going through our bloodstream again. Okay. I want to make a mention about HDL. My dad would not let me leave without talking about HDL. HDL, have you all heard of HDL? It's the happy, healthy molecule. It says, hey, look at all this extra stuff. I'm going to take it back to the liver. Hey, here we go. Hey, I'm going to take it back to the liver. Hey, come on, Fal, we got a lot of stuff to clean up. So here we go. Happy, healthy, yay, back to the liver. It picks up all them out, recycles them back because you're making your own body. With your liver is making cholesterol to make your own hormones, to make your own cells like 2x4s. So these guys are important. Now, on a plant-based diet, how much of this extra stuff you're going to have lying around your body? Not so much. Are you going to hire as many HDL molecules? Are you going to bother making a bunch of HDL molecules? No. You don't need them. Your body's not going to make them. So when you go to see your doctor and your numbers are beautiful, your HDL is low, your LDL is low, your total cholesterol, your weight, your this, your that, your everything's looking good and low, and they're going to say, well, everything looks really great, except I really want your HDLs higher. So you're going to say, I knew you'd say that, and I don't need to make any more dump trucks because I'm all good. Not a lot of garbage to clean up. You don't need them. Okay, so that's what he would say about heart disease, but he'd say it in a much more scientific way. But his conclusion, he made me bring his conclusion, as you can see by the blue PowerPoint. It is, well, you probably have read this already. It's a mistaken belief that patients with cardiovascular disease will not adopt a significant lifestyle transition to plant-based nutrition to halt and arrest their foodborne illness. He thinks it's such a disservice. And so his conclusion is, it is unconscionable not to inform patients of this option for a cure. It's an option. Some people, I get it. They don't want to change their diet. They don't want to get back on a bike and ride across Alaska with their grandchildren. They don't want to change. Listen, I like my, I don't even know what to say, deep fried ham too much. Some people, we have lots of triathletes who get heart disease. Being active does not keep you from getting really heart disease in your arteries. And what has happened is one man It's pretty stunning. He had heart disease. Dick Dubois, he's in the intro of our cookbook. He had heart disease to the point where he had a hard time walking to the mailbox. He was a triathlete, big businessman. He was sort of a champion of his own world, and he just couldn't get over this. He was supposed to have surgery a month from when he started to eat this way. He contacted my parents. I'm going to give it a try. They're like, okay, you've got a month. Go for it. After 11 days, he had no more angina or heart pain in his heart. And the surgeon called and said, hey, we can schedule your surgery for earlier. He said, you know what? No. Let's schedule it for a little later because I feel good. I'm giving this thing a go, and let me just try it. Well, 8 years later, he's back doing triathlons, Ironmans. He was just recently in the Andes Mountains, hiking around the Andes Mountains with his grandchildren. This guy was he couldn't walk to his mailbox. He did it. Yeah, we write some recipes and yeah, we pass on research. He did it. And what's so fascinating about this stuff is we have hundreds and hundreds of these hooray stories, but it's because people chose to do it or to try it. People say, I did it 70%. I gave it a try. It didn't work. Well, we don't have a program that's 70%, so you didn't try it. Even a 98%, you didn't try it. Give your body the chance to try this. Do it. After a month, you'll be stunned at your numbers. Stunned. Okay, I'm done talking as if I'm my dad. Okay.
So now, we'd like to give you some of our guidelines. And we have 12 in the book, but 3 are obvious. 2 of them are obvious, no meat and no dairy. But what I'd like to do right now is start with no oil, which some people think is like the hardest, but honestly, that's the easiest, because all you do is go home and dump your oil. You have no oil, so what do you use?
Nothing.
Any liquid works, absolutely.
Or nothing at all.
Right. Oh, yes. Absolutely nothing at all. Thank you. Because onions have got lots of water in them, and most recipes start with an onion.
Being cooked.
And it will cook by itself. And in fact, we've got a stunning little, I just have to give you an aside. In this book, we have the photography in this book was done by a woman named Donna Ruhlman. Now, I don't know if any of you know, but Donna Ruhlman is a fantastic photographer. And her husband is Michael Ruhlman, who has written maybe 15 books.
On food.
The
Soul of a Chef.
The Soul of a Chef. And when she arrived at our house the first time to do the photography, her husband had just published
The Book of Schmaltz, which is a love song to a forgotten fat. And we were like, oh, if she can make schmaltz look good, we're going to kick it out of the park.
I
here.
mean, chickens, raw chickens. The way she photographed them, you would have wanted to have eaten them right there raw.
Well, maybe you would. I was not.
Well, I mean, so anyway, back to no oil. It works. Mushrooms are fantastic with no oil.
You just put them in the pan and you walk away from the pan. Leave them. Leave them. They brown, and the fluids come out, and they cook. Leave it for at least 4 or 5 minutes. Just leave it.
Now, the hardest thing that we had was to cook, when this was 30 years ago, to have no oil in a salad dressing. Now, I can't imagine putting oil in a salad dressing. And we have some chapters in this book that are just filled with 1,000 salad dressings. And there's a most gorgeous picture of salad dressings in here. But try without. Now, let me tell you the thing that was the magic beginning for us. When we discovered hummus that was without, my husband does not want people to have the tahini in hummus because it's just ground sesame seeds, so it's lots of fat. And by the way, this is not a no-fat diet. It's a no-added fat diet. So there is fat in everything. There is fat in oats. I mean, a half cup of
Spinach
oats
has fat.
is 3 grams of fat.
Mother
Fine.
Nature got it right. She put water, fiber, bulk, phytochemicals, all kinds of nutrients in food.
Can you see
And
this?
you don't need
if
to
I
take
hold
like
this
corn
up?
syrup coming
The
from
salad
corn
dressings.
is like olive oil coming from 2,000 olives. Just eat the whole food. Eat the whole skin, bulk, pulp, fiber.
So our salad dressing, hummus became our mayonnaise. Then we discovered balsamic vinegars. Now I think there are the most amazing fruit-infused or infused balsamic vinegars that take them to something that you just can't even believe. So many of my husband's patients now just use the balsamic vinegars as their salad dressing. But for us, and I'll just give you quickly what I use every night, is I take some hummus, balsamic vinegar, a little mustard, maybe ginger, if I feel like it, and some orange juice or an orange, or I cut the sections out of the orange and squeeze a little orange, and we love it. But, you know, everybody's so individual that you really need to figure out what you like and fool around. But that is one of the first things that I strongly recommend that people try and find a salad dressing, because, oh, life is so gorgeous then. Now, the other thing that is difficult often for people changing with no oil is, what do you do? How do you cook with no oil? Well, instead of oil, you can use applesauce, apple butter, baby food prunes.
You mean baking? In baking.
Oh, I mean, what did I say? Baking.
Cooking.
In baking, yeah. And I don't recommend a lot of baking. I don't bake much. Jane is a better baker. Oh my gosh. Jane created something that I can't believe. A kale cake with blueberry frosting. And I know it sounds outrageous.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's so
Beautiful.
good. Her daughter, who
I
was...
wanted it to be on the cover of the book. Look at that thing. Someone on Amazon said, it looks like it fell off Venus, but I made it and I feel like I fell off Venus. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? You can make raspberry frosting so it's green and red for the holidays.
So anyway, no oil truly works.
We love
Now-
all these dressings. At the end of all this cooking, we said to my dad, hey, Daddy, which is your favorite dressing? He's like, I kind of like the dressings we had before you guys were making this book. So he loves having your favorite dressing. Just find it. It's going to be cannellini bean based. It could be balsamic based. Anything she eats is balsamic based. Her blood, probably you could test it directly for balsamic vinegar.
All right, we're moving on to greens.
Thank goodness.
We want you to fill your lives with all of the vegetables, all of the colors. But the thing that we all just don't give enough attention to are all of the crazy, wonderful leafy greens. So I just literally, not a few hours ago, went to our garden. And look, this is kale. Isn't this spectacular? So I hope all of you have gardens, and if you don't, you probably could plant one right now and get kale, because it goes, we have picked kale. In this book, all the pictures of kale were taken in December.
She's so proud.
I had to take the snow off them.
From her garden.
Jane and I, just in case any of you are not professionals on eating kale, want to show you how to strip kale, because if you could become a community of strippers, it would be wonderful. So you take the kale in your right hand, she's left-handed, so she's the reverse, and you simply pull.
And throw it into your soup. Throw it into your salad. Throw it into whatever, the boiling water. We cook our kale in water. We don't steam it with a little
No problem
molecule.
if you like to steam
We
it.
cook it until it's done so we can eat it and chew it and not choke. This stuff is like a tarp. Waterproof, bomb-proof, soundproof. You've got to cook it, not steam.
I'm saving this to take home for a meal.
Got a whole garden full.
And just by the way, there is nothing wrong with these stems. The only reason we strip it is it lets it cook evenly. But you can take the stems, and if you cut them on the diagonal You can boil them. You can put them in soup. One time, our son Rip was visiting. Can you hear me? Our son Rip was visiting, and I had just cut these stale kale stems, and I asked him, "What do you think of this? What do you think it is?" He had no idea. He thought it was some new vegetable. So, you can use it, and you can put the greens, and it's not just kale, it's all of the leafy greens. It's the mustard, collards, Swiss chard. Things like Swiss chard and spinach melt, in 2 seconds. But right now, with all of us going into winter, fill your soups with that. If you're cooking pasta, cut in little pieces the kale. Put it into the boiling pasta water and let it cook with the pasta. And then it's done. It's done. Then you've got a whole meal where you put some pasta sauce on, and it's great.
We massage kale sometimes in a salad, but I'm not saying toss. I mean massage, because then you break down the walls of that kale, because it is like I said, it is so strong. It's like a tarp. So when you break it down with some hummus, some lemon, we call it a kale ceviche salad, because it literally is like cooking in the lemon and the hummus. So you squeeze it, and it turns it dark green from the pressure. Little carpal tunnel, little workout. It's all right. But massage it, and then after it's massaged and it's just collapsed, then you put in some mandarin oranges and some red peppers or some scallions or some arugula. Add a little kick to it there. It's awesome.
Now, another
red pepper flakes.
One of the things that for many of my husband's patients with heart disease, they have angina that is not going away, and they're doing it all. So he has them eat leafy greens, and maybe some of you have heard of this, at least 6 times a day.
Breakfast,
but
snack,
it is
lunch,
miraculous
snack.
What happens when people do this. But these are some thoughts to just get this kale in. Another way, if you love pizza, there are some fabulous pizza crusts. You can use pita bread. You can buy Nature's Highlight makes a brown rice pizza crust that's right in the frozen food section next to all the pizzas. At Mustard Seed, or I don't know, where do you all go? Whole Foods. But also, there is a Sammy, S-A-M-I, Sammy's Bakery out of Orlando, makes a wonderful pizza crust. It's a millet and flax pizza crust. But if you have pizza...
that's Sammy's Pizza. Crust.
Prepare your greens, cook them, mix them into your pasta sauce, and then spread that as your first layer on your pizza, and then you can fill it with everything else but cheese.
Okay, we have to move on to oats. Oats are also very important as far as the endothelial cells. Greens have, through research, I didn't bother you with the research article, greens show amazing productivity in endothelial lining. Greens, up the endothelial function. Same with oats. Oats are dose responsive. The more oats you eat, the better the results. Oats literally go through your body, and they collect all the extra cholesterol and things in your intestines, and they just, out they go, the back door. They truly help reduce cholesterol. And the best form to have them in is not Cheerios. That's a puffy, fluffy, weedy, there's some oats in there, perhaps. But the best form is old-fashioned oats. Not quick oats. They're just the same time as regular oats. Don't eat the quick ones. They're macheted up. Your body absorbs them faster, and you store them as fat. Eat steel-cut oats. Eat old-fashioned oats.
I don't like oatmeal. I don't like oatmeal at all.
She has a terrifying breakfast. You guys, it's terrifying what she has for breakfast. But we put it in the book because she's...
No, but I eat oats. It's just that I like steel-cut oats a lot because they're, do you know, any of you eat them because they're crunchy still. But the mushiness of oatmeal, I don't like, no, eat it if you like it because that's great. But we also really like to eat our oats just as they come out of the container, just as you might call them, raw, uncooked.
Like a horse feed bag?
And that's the breakfast that my husband has eaten for the last, 100 years that he's been alive. So with just oats, he puts oat milk or almond milk on it.
O-A-T, not goat, oat
And
milk.
banana and berries and raisins and it's
Chia.
great. So, fool around, but we've got a lot of ideas.
She has the same breakfast, but with no oat milk, no fluid.
You know what?
No
I know
fluid.
it's ridiculous. What I like is to take the oats
It's like a choke.
and take red grapes and cut them in half. And so every bite of oat has got a wet, sweet grape with it. And, that sounds, it's ridiculous. And so when we were doing this book, Jane said, well, we should try your well, I said, that's stupid. That's not even a recipe.
But people have loved it.
But it turned out to make the cover of the book. Can you believe it? So
Terrifyingly dry, but give it a go. Try
anyway,
it one day.
Our
Terrifying.
breakfast is largely
we have to go.
oats. Oh.
Now, next thing we want to move on to is the beans, legumes, lentils. These are really filling items. No one in America, or really on this earth, except for one little population, is at all at risk for a protein deficiency. Raise your hand high if you know someone who's had a protein deficiency. Okay, I've heard of fiber deficiencies. It's called constipation. It's called diverticulitis. Fiber is an issue, but people will not worry about fiber. They'll worry about their protein. No one has a protein issue. No one. Yes, there's protein in beans and legumes and lentils. There's not one bit of tofu in any of the meals we have here. Some of the desserts have some tofu, but none of the food. We don't eat tofu, but maybe once a month? Maybe.
Well, unless we're having lots of guests and then we have our crazy good
Dessert. We can't get dessert yet. Stop. Okay. But the point is, you're not going to be protein deficient. Mother Nature got it right. In all these foods, a cantaloupe or an apple or anything, there's fiber, there's water, there's vitamins, there's minerals, there's protein, there's everything you need in that whole food. When you start to break it down and extract things from it, then you're eating a diet of like macronutrients in your balance. Just eat the whole food.
So we've got lots of burgers in here.
Made from the legumes.
And with legumes and with beans. And, you can even put, say, red lentils are fabulous because they're a nice color. They keep things a nice color. You could put them in pasta sauce. So, avoid the fake meats because you're just moving into the vegan junk food. All the fake meats are made with oil, just with things that you don't even know what they mean. And avoid fake cheeses. It's the same thing. There are really no cheese substitutes. The closest we can recommend would be nutritional yeast.
And nutritional yeast
which is
great.
not like cheese, and and I didn't like it when I first tasted it, but I must say, when someone made a review of this book, they made a comment about all the nutritional yeast because we do have it in a lot of recipes. For instance, we have some cauliflower steaks in here that are great, and we have a combination of nutritional yeast, hummus, and some balsamic vinegar and green onions. I can't remember all the stuff, but you put it on top, and I don't know, it's really crazy good. And when you bake with nutritional yeast on top of, say, burritos that you're baking, it looks like cheese.
Who here knows what nutritional yeast is?
Oh.
For those of you who don't, a lot of you do, imagine in a non-dairy universe, you're combining flaky fish food with Parmesan cheese. Okay, it's non-dairy. So it's flaky, but it melts a little bit, and it has like a texture on your tongue that sort of carpets your tongue the way that cheese carpeted your tongue, but like Parmesan cheese, not like cheddar. So it's this great flaky difference. But no need for fake meats even when you can make a carrot dog.
It is amazing. Amazing. You take a carrot and you cook it for about 10 minutes.
Boil it in water.
Boil it until it's like a hot dog.
A hot dog
and
size.
Then you cut it in half and put, what do you call it?
Liquid
smoke on it. And put it in a panini machine. And the paninis gives it those little lines. And then, then you can put ketchup and mustard and sauerkraut and maybe some little spinach.
Because it's all about the condiments.
I wake up in the middle of the night, and all I want is a carrot dog.
She's made them in the middle of the night. All right, whole grains, whole grains, whole grains. Please, anything you eat has the word whole in front of it or brown, like whole millet flour, whole wheat flour, not wheat, not hand harvested, organic, precious wheat. We don't care, that's white wheat. It has to be whole or brown rice, not rice or jasmine rice or basmati. Brown basmati, brown jasmine, brown rice, brown long grain, short grain, brown, or whole. Got it?
And you know, this whole, everybody seems to be thinking about gluten. I mean, we don't have any concern with gluten, but if you do, just, you know, avoid the things with gluten. But this way of eating doesn't deter you if you are watching gluten. And in fact, if you're watching gluten, it's good in the sense that you're not probably eating all the cakes and cookies, although the gluten stuff out there today.
Yeah, I think we eat wheat as much as we eat carrots. Like, how often do you eat carrots? 3 times a week? Twice a week? I think we have gluten or wheat that often, because just change it up. There's so many good things to eat. Sugar.
We have got to move along.
Yeah.
Sugar. Eliminate it.
That's not a word.
Limit.
Oh,
Limit.
I said eliminate it.
Limit it to as little as you can possibly do. And one of the things that we found is if you take sugar out of your life for a while, you lose that kind of crazy craving for it. What we did in this book is that you can't really say 0 because in a cookbook. So what we have done is we have used maple syrup. Now, there's 2 reasons why we've chosen that. One, it is unbelievably expensive.
Natural governor.
So yeah. And secondly, it is the fructose in the sugar products that you want to be careful about. And on the whole list of them, agave is up here at the top with more fructose, and maple syrup is down a little. Doesn't mean that it's giving you a green light to put it all over your oatmeal.
And there's more in it than just sugar. It's got other trace minerals. There's some calcium in there. So it's not just empty calories, the way that sugar truly is.
So we have the same feeling about salt as we do about sugar, and that is limited. Now, I frankly have done this to the horror of all our children who come, and you know, all our kids we have 4. Essie and I have 4 children, and we have 10 grandchildren. And when everybody comes and everybody cooks, and they're always looking for a little salt. I don't have any salt at our house.
Who's looking for salt?
But instead of salt, I recommend before you go to the salt sugar, if you need it, but try lemon or lime. It's amazing how that's helpful.
Your tongue is looking for 4 things. Your tongue looks for salt, sweet, acid, and fat. So we're taking away the fat, obviously. So you're left with your tongue looking for some salt, and you know, celery's got some salt in it, so your body, your tongue likes that. But basically, there's not a lot of salt out there in nature. So, we're not supposed to have a lot of it. Okay, let's just say we grew up. Sorry, I'm jumping to the belief that evolution, like we came from many, many thousands of years ago, and we evolved successfully eating what was available to us, and that wasn't a lot of salt. So we're fine not having a lot of salt in our diet. It's in the food we need. So we get rid of all the salt. You're pushing the acids. You're pushing the vinegars, lemon, lime, oranges, spices.
And hot sauces are amazing.
Yeah, you can distract your tongue.
Aren't looking, when something does taste bland, you know, Cholula or the sriracha hot sauces or whatever people like. So do try and move yourself away from salt. And then we want anybody with heart disease to avoid nuts, avocado, coconut. You know, coconut has become, talk about coconut.
Do you guys all remember hydrogenated oils? And I know Europe and New York City have just kicked them off the block, saying no. Hydrogenated oils are not allowed in our food sources, please. Hydrogenated oils have the structure that's like this. It's like, we will never break down. We are so fat and strong. Ha! They'll never break down. Even in your arteries, it's like, ha! I'm not breaking down. I'm staying here. It is so stable of its chemical structure, it's not going to break down. So when they got kicked off the block in lots of food manufacturing, they said, well, we have to go to a shelf-stable fat, and we can't go with butter because people don't like butter. We can't go with lard. People are horrified by lard. And those are all like 68% saturated fat, butter and lard, and somewhere around that range. And they're like, we don't dare go to this fat we've known about forever because it's 92% saturated fat, but I think we're going to get away with it. They went to coconut oil, palm kernel oil. That is 92% chat. It's like literally, it's like chapstick.
Excuse me. Do you know that 1/4 cup of coconut oil, coconut milk, 1/4 cup is 12 grams of fat, and 10 of those are saturated. Now, you know, whatever you think about that, just think about that fact in your body of that fat.
So
anyway,
the coconut manufacturers do not waste a thing. How many of you guys have heard of coconut water being a new thing? Why is it a new thing? Because nothing is going to get wasted from the coconuts used now as oil coming from where they're coming from. How many of you guys have heard of the whole palm kernel coconut oil problem happening in the Amazon? Like it is. If it was a food we were supposed to be eating in our bodies, like the coconut miracle. I've seen these crazy books. Like, why would not we have known about it for decades and decades and decades? It's something like a 2012 thing. And it truly has to do with the hydrogenated oils being kicked off the block.
So for your
Beware.
nuts, and some seeds are fine. And everybody eating this way should be having maybe a tablespoon or two of flaxseed meal or chia seeds a day. And that's great on cereal or salad or wherever. Now, the next thing we have to get to, and almost at the end, is water. Drink water.
Only water.
Don't juice. Don't drink smoothies. You know, if you're old and you don't have any teeth, then those things are fine. But chew your food.
You'll save thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of calories
Smoothies
if you drink water and not juice.
Smoothies became this big thing, but just think about it. If you were to put all the things in front of you that you put in a smoothie, would you eat all of that? You probably wouldn't. You get so many calories.
Or you just get full.
And through just drinking, I mean, it's easier to drink it. So chew your food. And then last of all, and something that is really key, is to...
I was looking for the dessert for a while, sorry. Finally found it.
Is to read ingredients. It is such a shock. I mean, this is such a crazy thing. Yesterday, I was putting vanilla. I love my steel-cut oats with a banana and vanilla, and you whip that banana and the water up and use that as the liquid for the oats. And I put some vanilla in, and I realized, and I wanted just to comment, so much vanilla that you buy, if you look at the ingredients, isn't just vanilla, it's got sugar. One day I was just buying nice raisins out of the bin at Whole Foods, and I happened to look, oil in the raisins. Then one time, in baby food prunes, guess what is in the organic baby food prunes? Now, the real baby food prunes have
conventional, not real.
Conventional have just got prunes. The organic adds tuna oil. So this is silly little things, but you will not believe, and oftentimes in ingredients, they will put 3 different kinds of sweet.
Do you know why they do that?
If they just put
They have to list it by weight. So if it has whole organic oats, you're like, awesome. But it has brown sugar and organic cane juice and molasses and vanilla, and then another sweetener. If they took all the sweeteners together, it would have been number one, and no one would have purchased that product. But if oats are first and they just use different kinds of sweeteners, they can list them in the order of which they were used, which would probably collectively be more than the oats.
So anyway, those are sort of the guidelines that we followed more or less while we were creating this book. And I just want to leave you, we've gone a little longer than we meant to, but we were trying to be
Shocking.
a husband. I want to leave you with something that a patient said one time, because out there in this world today, it is so confusing, and I understand. But this is what he said. And guess what? It's not in front of me right now.
He said, thank you for this book and this stuff. Yeah,
No.
I've practically memorized.
He said, this program is an anchor in the midst of a raging sea of ideas that don't really work. I feel planted as I maintain its regime. So we would love to have all of you enjoy this program and experience the magic of plant-based, whole food eating. So best of health to all of you. And if any of you do want a cookbook, I'm sure the library has some copies, and I think that there are some.
Are you selling them,
also.
Polly?
We are, yeah, in the rotunda. And
Okay.
the library.
And be sure that you
Strip
fill your lives
and
with all
massage.
kinds of great greens.
Stripping and massaging tonight. Assignment for you all. Sure. Some people have a question they want to ask, but you're welcome to get out of here. Sorry for going over time.
You use flaxseed to replace egg, or
Yes.
you use it to replace oil. Do you do that?
I do. I use a chia or flaxseed meal.
You can. I don't always do it because my kids don't love chia seeds and everything, but they do love it in some things. So I just don't.
But is that a good replacement then?
Whatever's going to have you eat good food is a good replacement. Put in apple butter, put in applesauce, put in chia seeds, flax seeds, whatever, it works. Some people don't like how it has that cool, slimy. I mean, you grow to like that.
One of the
Some-
crazy things about baking, I really don't bake, but when I was making this book, I figured I had to have a carrot cake, and oh my gosh, I made so many carrot cakes, and they were all, I just thought they tasted good, but they didn't look good. So I finally quit, and I renamed it a carrot cookie cake. Perfect, because, things don't always go as high as you'd like it to.
Without
But
the eggs and oil.
It still tastes good, and you know that what you're eating is not going to sort of injure your endothelium.
Another question?
Just was curious, how do you shop beyond your garden, especially in the off season? How do you supplement?
We buy everything that you buy in a store, but just I don't go to the meat section. And I go buy the dairy
Just
aisle.
stick 'em-
The dairy aisle has great corn tortillas they refrigerate that have corn, lime, and water in them. So there's no secret shopping. If you have a nice farmer's market, I mean, anybody can get meat at a farmer's market or cheese, or there's no special spot.
And it's wonderful to eat organic. It is not necessary
Necessary.
to do that. If
it's gonna get in the way of you eating well.
If you want blueberries and they cost $7 for this many, forget it. I mean,
Buy frozen.
Then frozen blueberries
The
are
la-
great. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with frozen vegetables. They are flash frozen on the instant right out there in the field. They're maybe even better than a lot of the stuff we buy fresh.
And I want to be clear about the shopping thing is that I shop at Heinen's, Trader Joe's, occasionally go to Whole Foods because I want to get like nutritional yeast in bulk, and they just don't have that at Heinen's. My brother, Rip, does work for Whole Foods because the CEO said, I love your program, Rip. Would you stop being a firefighter and come create product for Whole Foods? He's like, sure. I think I'll save more lives with food than I would driving a fire truck. And they now have Engine 2 products. And if we talk about them, it's only because we know that they're safe or that we know that they fit. But by no means do we shop at Whole Foods exclusively. And we're not pushing any store.
Well,
Mother Nature's the best.
There is one thing that I think is wonderful about Whole Foods. Yeah, you know, when you buy beans, if you know, if you buy them and cook them up yourself, great. I mean, that's perfect. But
You probably spin your own wool, too.
but if you buy them in cans, it is terrible amount of sodium that when you buy beans.
Yeah.
But at Whole Foods, for 89 cents a can, you can get beans with absolutely no salt. And if you get a case, you get 10% off. So that is a really good price. I mean, you know, so just as a little.
Speaking of cans, are they healthy? I heard there's.
Well, no, if you want the healthy cans, then you pay $2.50 a can.
But don't let that stop you from eating healthy. Don't go get Twinkies because they're packaged in plastic and not the can. Oh yeah. Some people do. Some places.
Right, and I think they're beginning to have frozen.
Yeah, frozen.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, cans have gotten a bad rap. Kind of like hydrogenated fats. That's going on
Well,
a
do you
lot.
think we should go and have some?
Someone had a question on
whatever-
this side. Oh, there's two here. So 1, 2. Go ahead. 1, then 2.
What about water? What kind of water do you drink? Filtered?
No, whatever's available. I didn't even take a peek at this. I didn't even care.
I don't ever buy anything. I don't ever because I'm old.
We have
And
well
I didn't
water at
grow up
home,
with
but
this. I just
I
drink
lo-
water out of the tap.
We happened to be in a street. Polly's house got city water, but we didn't get it down our street. They didn't do it far enough down our road, so we have well water. But I tell my kids, when you're at school, drink as much water as you can. They've got fluoride in that water. We don't at home. You know what? We'd all be dropping dead if the water was bad. We all would. We wouldn't be able to drink or cook, or, I mean, restaurants couldn't make a thing. Restaurants serve you water. Where's it coming from? The tap. So where's Coke get its water to put in its Coca-Cola? The tap. Water is, you know, unless it's lighting on fire out of your faucet, I'd say drink it. Yes?
How can I fry potatoes without using water?
You don't fry them. You can cook them.
That's my favorite breakfast.
Well, then
Use
just
a nonstick pan.
in a nonstick pan, cook the potato the night before, put it in the fridge. When you bring it out the next morning, can you tell what's happening? It's already cooked, and it's sort of gelled or hardened, or it's what is the term? It's set. So when you cut it, it's already cooked. Really, all you're going to do now is in your nonstick pan, you're going to put it in there with some garlic, spices, whatever you like it with, and it'll brown. But you got to cook it, or just you got to flip it so the sides are all brown. It's not going to be greasy. It's not going to give you that like full feeling, that sleepy feeling, that.
And you know what? Don't even worry if you don't cook it the night before. Just cut it in little pieces and put it in the pan with some onion. You like a little onion in there?
Then it's-
No onion. No onion?
No garlic, no pepper.
All right. Well, then just a little bit of. You could put a little
If
bit of.
potatoes are the plants you like, we're going to figure out a way
And
to like
also,
them.
you can have the most fabulous French fries if you just put parchment paper. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
that?
you should bake your breakfast now. Parchment paper is the best. Not wax paper. You get a
and
fire
then
in your
just
oven.
bake those French fries. Amazing. They
Or
get
hash
all
browns.
brown, delicious.
Give it a red hot go. Try it. Try to get free of oil. It's
You had a question?
a bad relationship. Nutritional yeast on which? Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah.
If you have our book, you'll see that we do that. Recommend that. Oh yeah, in my beef with me, I put it on all the pizzas. Maybe I'm getting the two confused, but they're no, you're right. But nutritional yeast is like just sprinkle on anything. There's no rule.
You know what I like? Ezekiel makes good breads, and they also make English muffins that open up like regular English muffins. I know, this is ridiculous. I like to take a little nutritional yeast and maybe some balsamic vinegar.
I was gonna say vinegar.
Just mix
Acid
it
queen.
Up and put it on and cook it as if it were cheese.
Little mini pizza.
Yeah, I mean, you can find such. It's so delicious.
We have a cheesy
We
sauce.
haven't eaten dinner yet, and I mean it's.
I'm getting hungry. We have a lemony cheesy sauce, which is great. It's made with nutritional yeast and where's the other? Anyway, and it's like
Hummus.
a Welsh rarebit. Is that what that was?
Yeah.
It's just like this creamy, cheesy yum.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right here.
Okay, you go.
Yeah. You know, the world is just
We
getting
are
so
bossy
friendly.
pants. We eat out.
It is. I mean, I don't know. It's really, truly great. My personal favorite restaurant is the airport Corrido Burrito when we're in the airport.
Because you can pick and choose.
And you know, I mean, you start with brown rice, black beans, you get all this corn, mango,
Peppers, onions,
salsa, and they even have cooked broccoli. I mean, but that's not a good answer. But if you go to a really good restaurant, call ahead.
They like
it's
the challenge.
Crazy. What
If you go to
they will
Applebee's,
do.
they don't care. They're
But
just
you
like,
can find things.
and they're not. They're just
Portobello
pumping it.
mushrooms are fabulous, and you know you can.
Japanese restaurants can have some very clean. The rice is white sometimes, but
That's all right.
it's much cleaner vegetables. Chinese restaurants are actually just carpeted in oil. I mean, dripping with oil. My husband and I tried to take our kids to a Chinese restaurant one time, and we thought, oh, we'll get them broccoli because we, oddly enough, have broccoli every night. I don't know why. It's weird. It's like teeth brushing and broccoli every day. We have broccoli. It became a habit. They're like, oh, I'll get broccoli and I'll get the what are those pot stickers? And so they all were so excited after the pot stickers. Here comes the broccoli. They're like, what is wrong? It was so oily. They were like, they kept wiping their lips. Like, what is wrong with it? They hated it. They were little at the time.
But just ask.
Never
I mean,
gone
Chinese
back.
restaurants are great to eat.
But
You
the
can
boiled
get
pot stickers is
fantastic
the-
things. They'll steam your vegetables.
Vegetarian. You have to be high maintenance. And if you can't take your own health in your own hands because you want to offend a cook, you know, what's it worth? What's it worth? One of my father's patients, Anthony Yen, he'd be here standing. If you've seen Forks Over Knives, you saw him next to the flagpole because he's got all kinds of success happening below the belt. And he's like 500 years old, but he's got a very important job internationally, and he goes to all these fancy places with heads of this and that and states, and he has a little card he carries with him with a red star on it, and everyone's like, oh, what's this red star? And it's so the waiters know that he's the one who has the special meals, and he's called ahead for everything. No oil.
And then sometimes if they
No
bring
meat.
something
No.
and it has oil, he asks them to take it back to the kitchen and rinse it in hot water until the oil is off those vegetables. All right, I think that we thank you for being here and staying.
Here's our information if you want to look at it. But